Good morning. Wow, it is such a pleasure to be here. I'm honored that you have asked me to come and spend some time with you this morning. I have a plan. I know that that's probably a shock to some of you, not many. So let me tell you my plan for this morning. First, I'm going to ask you a very important question. Then I'm going to tell you a little bit about the book and read from it. And then I'm going to share with you 5 principles that I've come to rely on when I'm struggling through some tough issues, and I've had a few. So the big question I have for you is, has anyone's life not gone as planned? Show of hands. Okay, good. I mean, not good. I'm sorry your life didn't go as planned. I'm sorry my life didn't go as planned. But the point is, really, we all have losses. Some are more visible than others, but that's really what connects us. So, and I think that most of us are struggling to figure out how to live fully in this life that we didn't plan. And that's what the book is about, rethinking what's possible. So the book, here she is. Took me 20 years to write her. She's had a lot of different forms and shapes. But when I decided it was going to be a memoir, I had to make 2 significant changes. Even though it was nonfiction, it had to read more like a novel with a strong plot, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And there also had to be some kind of character transformation. So with that format, I had to look at myself as a character and pick life events that told a larger story. So you will meet me, character Becky, at age 6, and watch me move through life events that transform my life little by little. Each event in the book sets me up to learn more and more about loss and the role that love played in getting through it. As I prepared for this talk, I realized that character Becky also had a faith transformation. So some of these readings are going to be hard for me to read, and some of them may be hard for you to hear. But I'm going to ask you to hang in there with me, and I hope that I can offer some sustaining guidelines at the end. Also, one of the unique features I did spend a little extra time on was the table of contents and associated quotes. So I want it to be easy for you to find out what happened and what helped me through it. So, for example, my divorce chapter is called When Winners Fail. And the quote that got me through it is from my dad: "Don't cut what you can unravel." So let's dig in. I'm going to begin with the first sentence of the book. The first sentence of the book, I learned, is very important. It can be the synopsis of the book as well as its key message. So let me see if I can make this work. Yay. We were 5 until we weren't. Our world was orderly and predictable until it wasn't. We knew so much about love, laughter, and the joy of being family until we didn't. In 1964, I was 6 years old and thought I knew everything. I was the rule follower and vigilant enforcer, in charge, or so I thought, of my 4-year-old brother Forrest and my baby sister Rachel, who was 3. It was almost time for dinner, a family staple you could set your watch by. 6 o'clock was the usual magic hour when all outside distractions were turned off, put up, or otherwise silenced, so we could share an uninterrupted family meal together. We knew no other way to dine. I heard a pop from the kitchen. "Canned biscuits tonight, guys," I whispered. "Don't say anything, Ray." I shot my sister a look, who stopped coloring and returned my look with an impish grin. "She won't," Forrest interrupted our standoff and moved in front of our sassy sister. "Will you, Ray?" "But homemade biscuits are better, and you know it, Becky." She pounded her fist on her coloring book as she jutted out her chin and crossed her arms, jamming her fist into her armpits. Her posture of defiance I knew too well. "Remember, Ray, we're going to the beach tomorrow." "The beach?" Forrest gave her shoulder a gentle squeeze and then widened his eyes. Forrest ever the peacemaker? Well, okay, sighed Rachel. Forrest smiled at me, and I grinned back in approval. Hey, Ray, you smell the bacon? I said, trying to lighten the mood and unify the troops. We love bacon, don't we? Forrest and I both nodded encouragement to her. Yes, we do, she replied, and finally smiled. We'd done it. Forrest and I had worked together and gotten our sister to behave, a dynamic we would continue until we were no longer 3 and couldn't. Dinner, Mom called. Your father's coming up the back steps. She looked at the 3 of us, searching our faces. Is everyone happy? Yes, Mom, we said in unison. Happiness was a premium commodity in our household, right up there with family time, gratitude, and planning. And Mom was the master of happy. She looked it, lived it, believed in it, and faithfully promoted it. But happiness took work. We each had to do our part, whether preparing the dinner table or settling our differences. Then Dad burst through the back door into the kitchen and announced, I'm home. Daddy, we squealed and jumped on his neck, his Old Spice aftershave lingering despite the end-of-day stubble. His jet black hair hadn't moved, slicked back into place with that little dab of Brill cream. He kissed Mom hello while we still clung to his neck. Old Spice and Brill cream, the smells of the 60s, of safety of my larger-than-life father, the anchor of our family. He had a flair for the dramatic and with little effort commanded a room with his booming voice, broad smile, and eyes that seemed to look into your very soul. Becky, I believe it's your turn to pray, my father said. I started my standard, God is great, God is good. Just before my amen, I took a short breath and added, and please, God, let nobody die in the next 2 weeks. Becky, my parents exclaimed. Rachel and Forrest's eyes popped open, their jaws dropping in shock. I just want folks to stay real healthy in the next 2 weeks. If someone dies, it'll ruin our vacation. Dad'll have to come back to do the funeral. Funerals were the kind of thing I worried about as a preacher's kid. PKs, like doctor's kids, have to deal with being on call, emergencies, and the reality that other people's problems become their own in a split second. Although I grew up in a household of faith, I didn't like the 3 Ds, divorce, death, disease, intruding on our family plans. I cringe now at the thought of that prayer, the selfishness, the shallowness, the way I discounted others' tragedies. But then I remember I was only 6 years old. It was a gutsy prayer. At least I was honest. So we meet honest Becky and learn about her perfect family. But because of that first sentence, we know loss is coming. We fast forward 14 years. I'm a junior at the University of North Carolina. Forrest, now 17, a stellar student athlete, president of the student council, with great plans to attend Wake Forest University, become a lawyer, and then a United States senator, has been severely injured in a water skiing accident. After 9 long days in intensive care, he dies. As my mother explained so simply, he was too sick to live. We pick it up at the funeral when I surprise myself with my feeling. I will tell you that this scene is one of the most rewritten sections of the book. I had to revisit my 20-year-old mindset and open myself up to honest reflection that taught me more about that loss than I ever realized at the time. Although Dad designed the funeral service, it was delivered by 4 other ministers. Randall Lally, his former seminary classmate, read part of Forrest's admission essay to Wake Forest University, completed the day before his accident. The last sentence of Forrest's essay looms largest, Dr. Lally said. After describing himself, his life, his dreams, his hope for the future, and his close and appreciated relationship with his family, Forrest wrote, I would change nothing. These were his last written words. I would change nothing. Dad slumped a little more. Mom sat erect, looking straight at Dr. Lally as the tears ran freely down the sides of her cheeks, her unused tissues resting in her lap. Rachel folded her arms tighter across her stomach and bent forward like she was going to be sick. I, too, bowed my head, but not in reverence. I focused on the wet wad of tissues in my hand, my cheeks burning with confused rage as Dr. Lally droned on. The simple words delivered a sharp, twisted message of comfort in knowing that Forrest was content with his life, yet a raw fury because I would have changed so many things about the day we lost him. What if he had come home on time? What if he had not made the last round of skiing? What if he had missed the pier? What were you doing? Where were you looking? Why didn't you pay attention? I am angry at you for being careless, for being thoughtless, and for leaving me here to miss you for the rest of my life. How dare you die on me? And I crammed tissues into the tears that weren't what they seemed. I was supposed to be sad, and yet I was hurt and angry and then ashamed for feeling that way. What is wrong with me? What is wrong with all of us? I would change nothing. This from that kid, the one with all the supersized dreams and plans and God-given talents to deliver. How could that possibly be the last thing he wrote? Who are we? Where is my family? What is happening to us? So my notes say here, if I get through this without crying, to give myself a high five. So back to the story. I answer my question, what is happening to us, with the title of the next chapter, A Family Shattered. The quote is mine and reflects what I've learned time and time again in the many bouts I've had through grief. The journey through grief is as unique as your fingerprints. In this chapter, you'll learn how, why, and where we shattered, and then I conclude with a couple of important paragraphs that set up the rest of the book. Table of four, a waitress would ask when we dined out during one of my rare visits home, and each of our taut facades would melt a little, and we would shoot each other that knowing look. Were we really only four now? Our close-knit family of five had been reduced to an awkward and foreign configuration of four. The numbers did not lie. Yet five was more than a number. It was a feeling, a comfortable feeling of effortless belonging, bound by traditions and rituals and stories and laughter. We were solid. We each had our place until we lost Forrest. Our bond was forever broken, and I wondered, would I ever find that special family feeling again? Was it possible? In my 20s, the answer was yes. Life pretty much went according to plan. I got my dream job in my dream location and married the man of my dreams who wanted the same things that I wanted in life, including a large, loving family. Our plans were to kick butt in our jobs and start our family by the time we were 30, and we did. My first pregnancy gave us a beautiful baby girl, Brittany Lee. And my relationship with Mom, Dad, and Rachel not only improved, but deepened as we figured out new ways to be family. Life was good. Then I turned 31 and had 5 difficult pregnancies in the next 5 years, 2 miscarriages, and 3 children with serious health issues that included epilepsy, autism, and a rare blood disorder. It took a toll on our marriage. My husband and I separated. Despite 3 years of intensive counseling, we divorced. 9 days later, I woke up with strange shooting sensations in my legs. In 6 hours, I was paralyzed by transverse myelitis, a rare inflammation of the spinal cord that affects 1 in a million. A third recover fully, a third recover partially, 1/3 have no recovery at all. We'll pick it up here when Mom and Dad meet me in the intensive care unit. "Hey there, Bibi," a deep, soft voice said. A large, warm hand covered mine as the monitor's steady beep became clearer. A hint of Old Spice helped me open my eyes. Dad? Yes, BB. It's Dad. Mom's here too. His voice trailed on as like he was slurring his words. How's the pain? Awful. But I have this button, I smiled, then winced, pushing the morphine twice. You rest, Pumpkin. His massive hand squeezed mine, and he turned to leave. I could hear him sigh and see the shadow of his shoulders round a bit more as he moved slowly to the door. Dad, I called out to him, it's going to be okay. He looked so worried, so tired. I just know it's going to be okay. I've been in the wilderness before, you know. I've been down here so many times, I had paths down here. I managed to smile as the drugs lifted a haze of hope above the grim reality. He turned and smiled at me, coming back to my bedside. Yes, you do, BB. Yes, you do. He gave me a quick kiss on the forehead before he left, his step a little quicker. I grabbed the morphine button and rolled it in my hand. The wilderness, far too much time there, losing Forrest, 2 miscarriages, Matthew's seizures, Madison's autism, Peter's fragile first weeks of life, and a divorce that nearly drained my will to live. And I pressed my thumb down on the morphine button once more. After 10 days in intensive care and a month in rehab, I returned home. I was determined to recover fully. I am 38 years old. I have kids ages 3, 4, 6, and 9. So basically, I just keep moving. Did the wrong one. But I do wrong, so I get to see all of them. No, that's not it's the one with the kids. There we go. Here I am, my young'uns. Okay, 3, 4, 6, and 9. Okay, so basically I keep moving through life, now from a wheelchair and a lot of help. A couple of months after coming home from the hospital, I received a yellow flyer in the backpack of Madison. If I can do the right one this time. Yes, there she is. Invited me to the home of Polly and BJ Surhoff. They wanted to tell us about a new autism therapy that was helping their son Mason, one of Madison's classmates. So we will pick it up here. Like most children with autism, Madison had very limited communication skills. At age 4, she still did not speak. My job as her mom was to be the master interpreter of gestures, cries, tantrums, and moods. It was exhausting. At the Surhoff meeting, we learned about a therapy and tried it with Madison. Unbelievably, she responded and started to speak, mastering her name, address, phone number, colors, and shapes within weeks. I wasn't the only parent to have these happenstance stories. Soon a small group of us met regularly. I thought about what mattered in the frustrating search for help and information. What was it that we needed to be good parents? One night, seated at my kitchen table, I took 3 coffee cans and traced circles, naming one resources, another referrals, and another research. And I intersected them with pathfinders in the middle. That is what we all needed, paths to find our way through this maze of information, not unlike the paths in the wilderness I'd experienced so many times before. That theme and coffee can creation became the beginning of our logo and the start of our parent-crafted tagline. Our mission is to find a path for our children. Within 3 years, in February 2000, our small group founded Pathfinders for Autism, a nonprofit organization directed at improving the lives of individuals with autism and their families. And now I'm pleased to report Pathfinders is in its 18th year of operation. Our staff of 8 included one on the spectrum, served nearly 20,000 individuals last year. Yet, despite the forward momentum with Madison, there are still more bumps ahead. After a year, I still have no recovery. Then I learned my father has kidney cancer. By that time, I had started emailing friends and family about my wheelchair escapades. Here's what I wrote to them the day I learned about Dad's cancer. You may react differently than I did, but if you've had the wrong thing said to you about tragic loss, this one is for you. Hi, folks. Yep, it's me again. It's time to write. It's time to vent. I did something today I have never done before. I swore in front of my parents. My mom and dad called me, telling me that they have found a tumor the size of an apple on Dad's kidney. It is malignant. Damn, I said to them, just damn it all. Can't they pick on another family for a change? In the weeks and months that followed my paralysis, I read many inspirational books on healing. It's an odd zone you slip into when you're trying to find the formula for the will to live. You look for meaning in everything you do, everyone you meet, everything that happens to you. You seek the highest level of interpretation, looking for the greater goods, the loftiest ideals. The details become the minutiae that have no merit alone, but together they form a pattern that you stretch and pull and twist into some shape of reality that finally makes sense if you stare at it long enough. The thought haunts you, the one that everyone so solemnly confides in you as you faced your latest challenge. Everything happens for a reason. Everything happens for a reason. Ugh. I've often thought I would create a book of myths, and that would be the first one I would attack. The second would be, God doesn't give you more than you can handle. I've heard them all dozens of times in dozens of circumstances, from Forrest's death to Madison's seizures to Madison's autism to my divorce to my paralysis. There is a reason for these tragedies, the theory cries, and God is behind it. Great. Just great. With that theory, I envision God as a card dealer, taking stock of all the players, assessing their tragedy thresholds. He has so many tragedy cards he is forced to deal, and he must give them out to those who can best handle them. How can that be a loving God? How Mean Is Your God was the title of a sermon Dad preached years ago. I've never forgotten it. It always puts God into perspective, who God is and what God represents. God is love. How could he willfully deal untimely death and unknown diseases, accidents, and heartbreaks to his children? I love what Dad has written in his book. He talks of looking for God not at the point of cause, but at the point of cure. Not to blame God, but to lean on God to get through the healing process. He created a world where man has free will, the power to choose. He created nature with its laws and limits. He created a world where there would be great joy and laughter and sorrow and pain. Bad things happen to good people. That's the way it is. We don't have all the answers. Dad says we have to learn to live life with the questions. Yes, learning to live life with the questions. Again, a much too familiar pattern for me and my family. How we would all love to be rookies in this game of adversity, but we are not. We are veterans. We are seasoned. And in truth, we don't cry uncle. We don't give up. It is not our way. It is not our styles. We are survivors, and unfortunately, we're damn good at it. Please keep us in your thoughts and prayers. Love, Becky. Wow, honest Becky, right? Yes. So, meanwhile, I cling to the possibility that I may still recover. But reality strikes again. After 18 months of paralysis, I ventured into a seminar designed for and by spinal cord injured patients. First, we heard an upbeat presentation on spinal cord research. Then we heard about the secondary complications that can occur from being spinal cord injured. Renal failure and disease complications had been greatly reduced, they told us. In fact, complications of the kidney were no longer the leading cause of death in spinal cord injured patients. The leading cause of death. Those words froze the pen in my hand as I looked up at the speaker and tried to absorb what I'd heard. In general, of course, he continued, the spinal cord injured population has a life expectancy less than the normal population. Boom. There it was. The whole truth was out. The words kept repeating themselves in my head. Then reality began to sink in. I suppose it was obvious, the fact I was a member of the spinal cord injured population. It's funny, though. I never thought of myself that way. I always felt like I was Becky Galli without the use of her legs. It never occurred to me I'd join a group. But the statement still played in my mind, its cruel certainty blaring. The group I'd unwillingly joined had some serious fine print. We have a life expectancy less than the normal population. If kidney problems were no longer the group's leading cause of death, what was, I wondered, and as the speaker had heard me, he started telling me what they were. The current leading cause of death in the spinal cord injured population are 1. Respiratory or pulmonary complications. 2. Suicide or accident. My notes stopped there. It was too much to take in. Yet I couldn't help wondering, what will be the cause of my death? Respiratory complications, suicide, accident, even kidney disease or failure? And is it really more likely to happen to me solely because I sit in this ridiculous wheelchair? When I got home, I made a vow to myself. Life expectancy will not change my expectations in life. And I wrote down what my expectations were. Number 1, I expect to grow as a parent, nurturing my children and creating an environment for their success. Number 2, I expect to publish my writing. Number 3, I expect to become as independent as I can from the wheelchair. I want to vacation, to travel, to experience as much of life as possible from this contraption I must use. Number 4, I expect to be ready for recovery, however small it may be. And number 5, I expect to become involved in at least one major philanthropic effort that would benefit the disabilities of my children or myself. As I faced mortality's place in my life, as well as the limits of paralysis, I struggled to embrace the thought that things may never be the same. I needed to let go of the burden to somehow return things to normal. So at age 41, I decided I needed to accept my life as it was. That day, I stopped trying to wiggle my left big toe. So even though I accept my paralysis, there is ongoing grief. This scene takes you through my personal daily routines and the reflections from self 1, Becky before paralysis, and self 2, Becky with paralysis. I hate it, self 1 said as she watched self 2 move through the motions of the day. Getting up, stretching out those tight legs, knotted with useless tone and unpredictable spasms, getting out of bed. I hate it, self 1 kept repeating as the daily living pattern unfurled before her. This is not me, she uttered with anguish. Can't be my life. Self 2 prepared for her shower, undressing with one hand while the other clung to the grab bar for support. Soap, shampoo, rinse. Then she checked her body carefully for skin breakdown and massaged her feet to increase the circulation. After one final transfer, self 2 buckled her seatbelt in her wheelchair and moved to the sink to dry and dress. It is then that self 2 paused and looked up. Self one saw self two's blue eyes filled with a distorted hope, glazed over with a quiet resignation. Self one bristled with anger, noting the trappings of paralysis that now cluttered a once simple routine. Why, she screamed more at God than herself. She closed her eyes and remembered the pre-paralysis split-second routines. It was a high-volume, high-energy life spent accomplishing so much so well. Where did it go? Why did it go? I shook my head, and the twins disappeared. I was left with a haze of loss and anger, but mostly a raw sadness. Every adaptation reminded me of what life was now compared to what it used to be. I had willed my mind to accept them, but underneath the veneer of adjustments, I was mourning the premature death of a life so full of promise, a loss that made no sense. It seemed to never end, these life after loss adjustments. It was hard, but in my better moments, I could widen and lift my thoughts to free them from the tangled web. Sadness was natural, I kept telling myself. I can't deny the loss. But I do have the power to manage it and the ability to learn from it. I have the capacity to cope, to shift my perspective. At least I once have a brother. Some never do. At least I was once married. Some never will. At least I once walked. Some never have. So, there is still more loss and learning ahead, but my final reading showcases the thought that sustains me best, even now. It is a portion of what I wrote to my daughter and son-in-law on their wedding day. For Brittany and Brian. First of all, I want you to know how happy I am for the two of you. My heart is bursting for joy for you now, the young couple, so much in love, and for the couple of the future, sure to be filled with the deep abiding care for one another that I see in you now. The scripture reading selected for your wedding has it right. Of faith, hope, and love, the greatest of these is love. Here is what I want to say to both of you on this, your wedding day. It is my daily hope and prayer for you. Brittany and Brian, from this moment on, you will face life together as you have never faced it before. You are a couple committed to one another for life. It is a special, sacred commitment. I hope you can find guidance from this one simple thought. Let your love be larger. Let your love be larger than adversity, than issues, than people or circumstances that threaten to pull you apart. Let it prevail, triumph, and overcome. Let love overshadow the small stuff, embellish the large stuff, and wrap a layer of warmth around the cold realities that you may face. Love is what we're meant to do, you know, share our lives with one another. Love can't fix all of life's hard times, but it sure can make whatever journey you are on richer, fuller, and most importantly, shared. Love each other because you can. And always let your love be larger. So, what did I learn in this faith journey? How has my faith transformed? Well, I have come to experience God not as a granter of prayer requests or a player in a belief system, but as a companion that I have a personal relationship with. Let me see if this is, oh, and I wanted to show you. Oops, I did it again. What do I do? I already screwed it up. That means I get to take some water. How about that? Yeah, that's Madison and Brittany in 2012. I thought those of you who have prayed for Madison might like to see a picture of her. So, and does the next, yeah, oh, okay, good. And now, is it the right one or the left one? Oh, no. Okay. Yes, okay. Yes. Oh, wait a minute. Turn the page here. So that is, and we have this relationship, and we also have our ups and downs. but we're in this thing called life for the long haul. At our best, you like this, Jackie, we're dance partners, especially when I give him the opportunity to lead. That's always a good thing. It's a little hard. Okay, so here are the 5 principles that have sustained me. Hopefully I can, let's see, left button, here we go. Yep, okay. It is okay to be angry at God. He can take it. When tragedy strikes, we are first shocked and then angry in my experience. We know that we're supposed to be sad, but the anger can be surprising, even guilt-producing. Most often, our deepest pain is rooted in a seething anger at the injustice of this situation, especially when tragedy affects young, innocent lives. It's okay to feel anger, I've learned. In fact, we're in good company. Jesus felt forsaken. So can we. God can handle it. Express it to those who are willing to hear it. Don't stuff those feelings. Find someone, friend, counselor, pastor, or professional who will listen. Look for God not at the point of cause, but at the point of cure. We like life to make sense. We like cause and effect predictability. We like answers. However, the question why can be a tormenting one. Although it's important to talk through these questions, at some point we may have to mark it unanswered and put it on a shelf. We often have to accept what we don't understand and begin to live our lives despite unanswered questions. I call it giving up the why to pursue the how. How am I going to get through this? You can count on God. This is where I truly learned to rely on God's presence and direction. But we may first need to give up some big toe moments, some unrealistic hope. One of my favorite quotes is, acceptance changes everything. God did not bring you this far to drop you. You are not alone. We may be angry with him, feel forsaken and forgotten, but God is still there. Sometimes pain strips us of all our communication, and all we can do is be as we try to absorb a new reality. After my son's seizures began, I couldn't pray. Dad told me not to worry. We will pray for you until you can pray for yourself. I trusted and rested in that thought, and eventually I could pray again. So if you can't pray, be honest. Ask others to pray for you until you can. Participate in what I call the 2-step struggle. Trust him as you move through what you don't understand. Trust him again to help you see what you can learn from what you've experienced. We must keep moving, even in the darkest valleys. Daily life after significant loss can be difficult, even overwhelming. We are often shocked into an emotional numbness that suspends us in time. Inertia can sideline us, even separate us from reality. One of my favorite sermons that Dad preached was entitled, "What Do You Do with a Wilderness?" The answer is an important one based on Psalm 23. You go through it. God is with us in the valleys and will help us get through them. Structure and companionship are vital in getting through the darkest valleys. Plans, projects, even my children's special needs help me keep focused and moving forward through these meantime periods of grief or waiting for clarity. Only after I wrote the book did I realize that I helped to found Pathfinders for Autism 4 months after my paralysis. I'm convinced that work helped keep my mind engaged and focused as I waited for the answer about my hopes for recovery. And my favorite? Nothing in God's world is broken beyond some use. We can still live fully and purposefully despite life-changing loss. Dad liked to point out the wording in Romans 8:28 that God works all things together for good. He didn't say the best. The best would have been for my brother to survive and fully recover. but he didn't. Out of that loss, we learned, coped, and grew spiritually. My faith was challenged and deepened then, as it has been each time loss has touched my life in the years since his death. I've learned that when we finally accept our circumstances, we can rethink what is possible and get on with the business of finding God's purpose in the life we have yet to live. We may be broken beyond repair, but not beyond some use. Thank you. Thanks, it's great. One of the reasons I wrote the book was to connect with people. This thing kind of limits me sometimes, but I do Thoughtful Thursdays every Thursday. I write about what's inspired me to stay positive that week. It's usually a quote or some kind of experience that I've had. And also, I want to get to know you a little bit. So what I've learned the last couple book clubs I've been to, I was like, okay, you know what? Put your name, your email address, and tell me a little bit of something about you, a little way we can connect. So I'm going to pass this is my connection, Rethinking Possible connection book. So we'll pass that around, and please sign up if you want to stay connected. So, questions? I know. Yes?
What's happened since the end of the book? For those of us that have read the book, any updates about anything major life going on since the book ended?
Well, my son is at Stanford. He graduated. He's now in New York City, Peter. And my daughter, I now have 2 grandchildren.
Oh, congratulations.
So a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old, 3-month-old. So, yes, so.
Where do they live?
They live in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and then my son is in New York. Cheryl's good. She says, buy it and find out. Yeah. So. And that's the kind of thing I update on my Thoughtful Thursdays. There's pictures of family and kind of what they're doing and that kind of stuff, because that's a very frequent questions, like what's new. So my sister is she's still in Georgia, so she'll be coming up in February to spend some time with me. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully I'll get her to another WOW, because she enjoyed coming to 2 that she's been to. So, yep, her son is getting married, got engaged over the holidays, so we have that to look forward to. Yep.
So Becky, my husband knows the Surhoff family through his work, and they've done amazing work. I had no idea your connection with them. So does that mean during a lot of this book, which I read part of it thanks to Darlene, you all were here in Baltimore? You lived here?
Yes. I've been here since 1983.
Since 83.
She just wanted to.
Yeah, I was just saying the Surhoff family, which has done so much for autism. My husband's done some work with them. I didn't know that Becky was associated with them in such an amazing, powerful way.
Yep.
And I just it just made me think you obviously been here in Baltimore for a while, and I didn't know what part of your journey was here. And you said since 83.
Yep. So I married and had all my kids here at GBMC. There's actually a Pathfinders for Autism information on that desk if anybody wants to take it. We have a golf tournament coming up in May, and then a big fashion show that Polly and I do together every other year, and so that's in November. So, yep, really enjoy that work. Yeah.
You said you traveled. Can you share where you have traveled to? And what is? I really am our anyway. Travel is difficult when you have 2 kids.
Yeah, so we found cruises to be really great, because once I got established in my room and my bathroom, I didn't have to worry about that. So I think we took maybe 4 Disney cruises and 6 cruises with another cruise line. And that was a wonderful way to keep family together. I would travel with Rachel and her children, so our kids could stay close that way. So I think the last one was to Bermuda like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. Right. Transverse myelitis, it's one of those things that hits. There's been known to have recurrences. I've been in the wheelchair 20 years now. I have not had a recurrence. It pretty much comes and does what it's going to do and leaves you alone. And that's actually colored my approach to restorative therapy, because I don't want to do, I'm stable right now, and I don't want to do anything that would destabilize me. So a lot of the research that were out there, I've chosen, especially when the kids were young, just to say no to that unless it's absolutely sure and true and tested, because stability is a good thing. Yeah.
One of the things I admired in your book, sorry to be shouting in your face, one of the things I admired in your book was the relationship that you maintained with your husband and his second wife. Could you say a little bit about that for us?
Yes. It was really important for me to be accepting of, moving on. And it was difficult because I didn't move on. And I wanted to move on. I would love to be married. I would love to, I really, really miss the married life. But I knew it would be easier for my children if I could develop a relationship with this new family. So Cindy and I are close. We still vacation together, and our families still do. And it's really grown to be a very loving relationship but it takes a lot of effort. Let your love be larger is a worthy goal, and sometimes I hit it and sometimes I don't. But yeah, it's been worth the effort. My kids, I think now that my kids, Peter's 24. So, and I think now that they've reached that age, they realized after looking at other people's divorce situations, I think they're appreciative that Cindy and I, and Joe took that approach. Yeah, when you think about it, it's, it's our vacations. I mean, what man invites the ex-wife and the current wife? You gotta love that. He's got a big heart too. So, and I'm very appreciative of that and try to express it a lot. Yes.
Becky, this is a bit of a tough question, but my perception is, at least from this morning, that the loss of Forrest, of all of your losses, was one of the more impactful, difficult ones. And is that perception accurate? And if it is, can you explain the place, how that falls in your life?
And people have asked me that, which is the toughest loss? And I go back to Forrest just because when you're 20 years old, you think you've got it all figured out, you've got the world by the tail, you've got your plans, and then when something this random happens to that kind of kid, it just jars you. And it's interesting, I've had a lot of people write to me who have lost siblings, and they say that, it's not visible. You don't know you've lost a sibling. There's nothing visible about that. But they say that it stays with you your entire life because there's not that sibling to help you with aging parents, or to help you when you need it. All of a sudden, it's really reduced, and 4 was such a smaller number than 5. I think that's why I wanted to have 4 kids myself, So that is definitely, it's still with me. That's the one if I was going to cry, it was going to be on that one, just because I miss my brother so much. He was such a big part of our life. And, you don't realize that you kind of lose that part of your parent, too. I mean, he was the boy, so we didn't do boy things, as much. The baseball games, the basketball games, his whole, that whole, and I talk about that in the book, that you really do lose that part of your parent. And I didn't realize that until I wrote the book, that it's just nested losses when it comes to of loss at that age, I think. Yeah. Yep. Good? Yes. How did end up what? End up what?
Did he die?
Oh, yes. My father was diagnosed with cancer, and he died in 2003. Yes. Well, he almost made it to the 5-year. He was within, I think, 4 months of that 5-year kind of safe period, and then it came back with a vengeance. And so he died in 2003, my mom in 2005. Yeah. So, yes, 72. They both were 72, way too young. Way too young. Yes. Hey.
Do you find that without even intending to, you're able to witness to other people because they see you life and they know where you're coming from, or is that just not something?
I don't. The question was, do I find that I witness to other people and I don't mean to? I guess I wouldn't know if I do. You know, I try to be me. I try to be very honest. You know, there's been some tough situations where people, you know, I think you're in a wheelchair sometimes and people offer you advice, especially about your faith. You know, I tell this story. Some of you have heard it. I was at the Verizon store with my son Peter, who, this is just a couple years ago when we were waiting, and this lady came up to me and she looked at me and she put her hands on my knees and she said, you know, honey, you just really need to believe in Christ Jesus and then tomorrow you'll walk. And so, you know, my son is like, Mom? And I said, you know, we just got to bless her heart. It's what we got. We just got to bless her heart. And so, you know, she left and he said, Mom, are you okay? And I said, yeah, you know, she thought she was doing good things, but, you know, that's hard. Yes, Gloria. Yeah. It does. You can use that a lot of different ways. So, but it sounds kind, right? I know it. Excuse a lot of stuff. Yeah. I think. Oh, wait, one more. I started getting carpal tunnel and arthritic thumb and some shoulder issues. So it turned out when my dad, that was back in 2000, probably 3, I first occasionally would use the power wheelchair. But then it just, you know, I got to save what I got, you know. And so I moved in. They told me to push that away, as you know, defer that as long as possible, just because it's better for me. I get more exercise and that kind of thing. But then there comes that fine line where you got to keep what works. Yep. One more? Yeah.
Kind of a practical question, but, you know, raising 3 children with special challenges, with your physical needs and such, I think about health care, health insurance claim. I mean, that must just have been a huge job. Who was your advocate all the time? Or did you and your, you know, ex-husband?
He's been tremendous. I mean,
It could be a full-time job for somebody,
Right.
with all the activities and needs that everybody had and the fighting you
Yeah.
had to do to get them covered, I imagine.
yes.
You know, how do you do that and not get overwhelmed and give up?
Well, he was very helpful with that, you know, and there was never any question that the kids came first and their care came first. I got really good at interviewing sitters. I counted up 2 years ago, I had hired 88 caregivers for my kids because I could not be alone with them. So I got my little questionnaire down and, you know, the whole thing. But I had a lot of help with that because you're right, that could be overwhelming, but I was fortunate that I had a lot of help. I think that's good. Yep. Oh, one more? Yep.
So how old are your boys now and how are they doing?
So my oldest, Brittany, is 30. She's the one that has the 2 grandchildren. She's married. Madison is the one many of you have prayed for. She is 25 and in a group home in Owings Mills and doing well. And then Peter is in New York City. So he finished up on the West Coast and he's now in New York. So at least I got him on the right coast. But everybody's doing well, you know. Good. Thank you.
Well, join me again in thanking Becky for
Oh.
taking care of